Go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
The oldest team in the NFL just got a little bit older. Who's running the front office around here? George Allen? The over-the-hill gang rides again. Von Miller signed last night, announced his own signing. We'll get to that. 36 years old. Yeah, he's been an all-pro a bunch of times. Super Bowl MVP. It's been a while, though. It's been a while. He may have something left in the tank on a one-year deal. Why not? Why not bring him in? And what does that mean for the signing of Terry McLaurin, as there continues to be radio silence out of Ashburn as we get closer and closer to the deadline for veterans to report, which is next Monday, and practices start on Tuesday. They've got time to get things done, but there doesn't seem to be any sign of that. So this kind of came out of nowhere last night, though it had been, I guess, talked about in a few different places, that Von Miller might wind up in Washington. There is that connection. Adam Peters was a scout with the Broncos when they took Von Miller out of Texas A&M. He had a great 10-year run with them, was, as I say, the MVP of the Super Bowl, 8 times in the Pro Bowl, 110 and a half sacks in Denver, and since then he's racked up 19 and a half more, so he's got 129 and a half. That ranks him 16th of all time. Again, what's left in the tank here, but we'll see. Interesting how it was announced, and this is how things go in 2025. On Instagram, he put up a Photoshop picture of him in one of the throwback uniforms wearing number 24. I guess he's already worked that out with the team, what number he can wear. It's a defensive back's number, not a linebacker number, but whatever. He's going to wear number 24, it appears. And he put on the Instagram post, he said, DC, what's good? ? And he had a smiling emoji with sunglasses, and then an emoji of a trophy, a Super Bowl trophy. It's funny, I was just talking about Matt Millen yesterday, and it was totally unrelated. It was in regards to Nick Saban, in that Saban has made this great transition from coaching to television, and he's really good at television, but there are rumors that he wants to come back and coach, even though he's in his 70s now. It must be like 73 by now, 74. And he might want to come back and coach. And I related Matt Millen, who had great success as a broadcaster after retiring from the Redskins. I still think he's the only player to win Super Bowls with 3 different teams. He won with the Raiders, he won with the 49ers, and in his last year won one with the Redskins, and was on his way to being John Madden's replacement whenever Madden was going to leave CBS and then later Fox. But he said that although things were going well in broadcasting, he missed the winning and losing of games. Like, he'd leave the booth. He didn't have a win. He didn't have a loss, and he missed that. So he wanted to be a GM. He got to be the GM of the Lions. He was a terrible GM, didn't work out, and then got back into broadcasting, but never reached the level that he had before. And as I look at Von Miller, he would have a chance to win Super Bowls with 3 different teams. MVP of Super Bowl 50, with the Denver Broncos, as they won in what was Peyton Manning's last game, and then he won one with the Rams in 2021. It was a midseason trade and helped them to get over the top, and has spent the last 3 years in Buffalo. Hasn't put up great numbers, has dealt with injuries. He had an ACL tear. Had signed a big deal with Buffalo, $120 million in the 2022 offseason. Had 8 sacks in his first 11 games, then had a major right ACL injury on November 24th of 2022. He said last year in training camp that he should have sat out 2023. He played in 12 games, didn't have any sacks and 3 tackles. So he played hurt in 2023, but he did have a few sacks last year. And here's the big thing, and I wonder if they'll kind of use him like as the Mariano Rivera of closing sackers. The numbers that John Keim puts out here for pass rush last year, they had 43 sacks, which is 11th in the NFL. But in the 4-man rush, they ranked 26th with 22 sacks. And in the fourth quarter, they were 30th with 5 sacks, which is really, as UB Brown would say, a staggering stat in that they won all those games at the end of the game. 5 of the games that they won were on the last possession. So it wasn't because the defense was that great. It was because the offense was that good. And maybe, I guess you could flip that around and you could say, well, if the defense was a little bit more stout, then there wouldn't have had to have been all those fourth quarter comebacks that they had. Miller was due to make a lot of money this year in Buffalo, $8.4 million, second most on the cap to Josh Allen, so you can understand how he was cut loose. And, why not? Why not? Now, one other thing I would say about this, and yeah, they know him. Adam Peters would know him from his days in Denver, and outside of this, there's really been no real issue with him. But for a team that has gone out of its way to make sure that they have the right guys, and having a guy who's been around the league this long can't hurt, but he doesn't have the off-the-field Bobby Wagner pristine reputation. He was suspended for 4 games last year for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. This was from allegations that he assaulted his pregnant girlfriend in suburban Dallas during the Bills bye week in 2023. He did turn himself into police and was released on bond, and the case was later closed, and charges were never filed. So, I guess you could say that there were no charges in this, so he's clean. But, that's something that might be of a little bit of concern. But anyway, that's a new guy here and an old guy here, and it kind of reminds me, got to go way back on this, they're the same age. Deacon Jones came here in 1974. They didn't keep track of sacks when Deacon played. They did not become an official statistic until 1982, but he's regarded as one of the great pass rushers of all time. He did have 3 sacks in his final year, but his most famous moment, Deacon Jones in 74, was kicking an extra point in the last regular season game of the year against the Chicago Bears because Mark Mosley had a sore leg and Mike Bragg was doing the punting and the kicking, and Deacon asked to kick. And Sonny Jurgensen was the holder, refused to do it for Deacon. Joe Theismann came in, and you can probably find that picture on the internet of Deacon kicking that extra point in 1974, which, again, was his last year in the league. They did have a lot of older players on that team. Some of the over-the-hill gang had been shuffled out. This was year 4 under George Allen. So first year they make the playoffs. Second year they make the Super Bowl. Third year they make the playoffs, but don't make it out of the first round. I think they lost to Minnesota in the first round, but they had Sonny Jurgensen, who was 40. Billy Kilmer was 35. Charlie Taylor, 33. Ron McDowell, 35. They had Maxie Bond still on the roster. He didn't play much, but he was 36. Pat Fisher, 34. Chris Hamburger, 33. They had some over-the-hill guys left. And at 36, you could say, with guys like Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz, that maybe the over-the-hill gang rides again. We'll see. The quarterback situation is certainly different in that you had Sonny at 40 and Billy at 35, and now you have Jaden Daniels who's, 23, 24? Marcus Mariota's a little older. He's been around the league about 10 years, so he's probably early 30s. But, older guys, sometimes they're the glue guys, and that's what puts you over the top. All right, back to the Terry McLaurin contract situation. A couple of things I want you to hear here. This goes back to February. This is that season-ending news conference that they have every year with Dan Quinn and Adam Peters wrapping up the year, and they start to look forward to the combine and the draft and stuff like that. And one of the questions was about Terry McLaurin and a contract extension. And listen to the whole thing. It's only 18 seconds. But the last few words that Adam Peters said in February might be telling. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, maybe not, but this was Peters on the question of a contract extension for Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get into those conversations, and if we do, those will probably remain private. But first of all, congratulations to Terry on his wedding with Caitlin, and we love Terry. He's a great commander, and we're really looking forward to having him again next year.
We look forward to having him again next year. He's a great commander. He didn't say, want him here for a long, long time. He said, we look forward to having him here next year. Now, that could be negotiating posture because he does have a contract for this season. So the position, and it may still be this way. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. It could be that they're saying to Terry and his agent, you got a contract for this year. Show up. Maybe we'll talk about an extension. But right now, you're going to be 30 years old in September, and you got a year left on your contract. We're still in the show me phase here. It doesn't seem like that would be something that would fit with Terry in the way that he's handled himself on and off the field and the way he's regarded in the locker room and by the fan base. And, he's kind of the picture of everything that they have wanted to establish here. But when you hear him say, we look forward to having him here next year, what does that mean? What does that mean? As far as support from his teammates, Zach Ertz was on yesterday on the Up and Adams podcast, Kay Adams, doing her podcast, and kind of no surprise about what he said here, but it's also indicative of how Ertz understands how the business works. And while he supports Terry, he's not throwing himself at the doorstep of Adam Peters and saying, you better get this guy signed.
Terry is a guy, I'm not going to over there. I don't know the business of what's going on. I'm not privy to the conversations. But what is it, July 16th? The first game is September 7th. There's a lot of time between now and then to get something done. But at the end of the day, I mean, everyone knows Terry's working his butt off, whether he's in the building or not in the building. And so for me as a player that's gone through contract situations, public contract situations, I appreciated that my teammates weren't out there giving their opinions and everything like that. So I'm not going to come out here and say one thing or the other. But what I do know is Terry is going to do everything he can to be at his best when his best is needed. And fortunately, his best is not needed tomorrow or early next week. It's needed towards the end of training camp, week 1. So for me, I'm rooting for Terry. I hope he gets paid as much as he wants to get paid. But in terms of the business side of it, I'm going to stay far away from that.
Yeah, that's Zach Ertz yesterday on the Up and Adams podcast. Peters also said before the Combine in March, or maybe this was the owners' meetings, is from Barry's Verluga's column today. He's a great commander. He's got better and better as the season went on, not only as a player but as a leader. It's really impressive to see him grow so much. You think of Terry as this pristine, polished player, but then he's gotten even better, so it's really cool. Everybody can get better, even the great ones. And he had a career year. No coincidence that he finally had a quarterback after having like a dozen schmageggies over the first 5 years that he was here. I think it was a dozen quarterbacks in 5 years, and none of them are going to Canton unless they're going by bus. So this is a guy who's developing as a great quarterback in Jaden Daniels with the help of Terry McLaurin. And do you want to stunt that? Do you want to do anything that's going to make Jaden go, they're playing it cheap here? And, they want to make sure, and they will, but they do want to make sure that Jaden Daniels is happy. The key to this season, they're really what they're in. And this is part of the reason that you do sign a 36-year-old Von Miller. They're in really a 2-year Super Bowl window here. That's not to say they can't win Super Bowls after they paid Jaden Daniels, but this is a very unique situation in that you have a quarterback who's now ranked in the top 5, according to this poll that was done by Jeremy Fowler, talking to executives and scouts and coaches, that he's a top 5 quarterback under a rookie deal. That is manna from heaven. That's a circumstance that every team in the league dreams of. Because once you start paying these guys the going rate, and by the time they get to Daniels, it could be $70 million plus, that's when you're eating up a large percentage of your salary cap for one guy. So I would say that this is the opportunity to go for it, veteran guys, and which is, again, more baffling why you can't give Terry McLaurin a deal that keeps him happy. And look, if this gets done at midnight on Monday, and they show up for their first workouts with the veterans on Tuesday, and he's got a new deal, this will be forgotten in 2 days. This won't linger. But if this goes into camp, I don't care what Zach Ertz says. Oh, he only has to be there the last week of training camp. No, I don't think that's so. I think that it's important that they get him in, and they don't want this as a lingering storyline, not just for the fan base, but for the guys in the locker room. That, hey, if you're going to treat Terry McLaurin like this, what does it mean for me? And that is not a situation. And we don't really know much about how they negotiate contracts. This is their first time. The first time we've seen the Quinn and the Peters combo on a contract. They have not in the first year negotiated a big contract. They signed a bunch of free agents, short-term deals, but this is a guy who stays. And this organization has had a terrible history of re-signing guys. They haven't really done that, and when they've done it, it's been really stupid, like Clinton Portis. So this new regime, this is going to be something to keep an eye on how they do this. But obviously, McLaurin has the support of the media. He's got the support of the fan base. He's got the support of his teammates like Zach Ertz, and it's a team that's in a position to have maybe their best shot in maybe the next 7 or 8 years to win a Super Bowl over the next 2 because of the fact you've got a great quarterback under a rookie deal. And that's hard to find. And if he doesn't take a step back this year, the next 2 years could be very, very intriguing around here. Philadelphia is still the best team, but things happen. Guys get hurt, guys fall off. There are all kinds of things that can go wrong. And if you're in the right spot at the right time and you're ready, that's the best place to be. All right, ESPYs last night. Alex Ovechkin won an award. We'll get to that. And Shane Gillis, a little more popular apparently away from where he did the broadcast than where he did it. We'll get to that. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
I can't say that I'm a huge fan of Shane Gillis. I've seen some of his stuff. My son, well, I guess this is the wheelhouse they want. He's 34 years old, and he and his wife live in Seattle, and they saw him perform live. He likes a lot of his stuff. I'm sort of interested in investing time in that series on Netflix, Tires, which looks semi-funny. Watched him last night at the ESPYs deliver the monologue. My impression is that he was much more popular with people watching on television than with people in the crowd. Now, there are really outstanding comedians who can seem to bomb and make people laugh. Johnny Carson was the master at that. So he did a monologue which was seemingly bombing, but he was making people laugh. He's obviously a big fan of Norm Macdonald, so he had a little homage to Norm at the end of the show. But he said some jokes that made people squirm a little bit. He said that he was talking about Bill Belichick and his 24-year-old girlfriend. He said, a bookie is what Bill Belichick reads to his girlfriend before bedtime. They read Very Horny Caterpillar, The Little Engine That Could But Needed a Pill First, and, of course, the classic Goodnight Boobs. He also said Joe Rogan actually wanted me to be here to host this award show so I could capture Adam Silver because Joe thinks he's an alien. And then he said, and Donald Trump wanted me to be here to capture Juan Soto for the same reason. This is the one that seems to be getting the most polarizing opinions, I guess. He said, when Caitlin Clark retires from the WNBA, she's going to work at a Waffle House so she can continue doing what she loves most, fist-fighting black women. There was some cringeworthy stuff there, things there that, as you were watching it, you go, yeah. I believe, I don't know this, but I believe that he had to pass it through some type of a filter before the stuff made the air. I don't know. Maybe that wasn't part of the deal. He also said at the end, Travis Hunter won the Heisman Trophy this year. He's the first defensive player since Charles Woodson to win the Heisman. Congratulations, Travis Hunter winning the Heisman. That's something they can never take away from you unless you kill your wife and a waiter, in which case they can take that away from you. So there were those kind of things. But by and large, I think, it went okay. I think the ESPYs have it's not something that I get real excited about. The first one that I went to would have been 1998, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 1998. And they had it in New York. And in those days, it was after the NBA All Star Game. At some point, they decided it was better to do it after the Major League Baseball All Star Game in the summer. Maybe they get a better turnout, whatever it was. But they had it at Radio City Music Hall. And remember this, Barry Bonds won the award for Best Athlete, which was the last award given out. They had also had an award earlier in the show for Best Baseball Player. I believe Ken Griffey won that. And Bonds was walking out of Radio City Music Hall figuring he got stiffed on that. They were just waiting to give him the big one at the end. And one of the executives had to talk him back into getting back into the stage. I also did the backstage interviews, which was really one of the cool things I've ever done. They were giving people awards and bringing them back to talk to me, and people like Joe Namath, and I had a couple of actors. I remember Conan O'Brien showed up, and then John Elway came back there. John Elway had just won his first Super Bowl, and I don't remember what the award was. May have been best championship performance, although he wasn't the MVP of that Super Bowl. It was Terrell Davis. I don't know what it was, but it was some type of an award, obviously. And he came back, and I said, you had previously said that if you didn't win a Super Bowl, your career would still be complete. And he said, well, I lied, and I would have kept playing until I won one. He won that one, and he won the next year, and he walked away. So that was when it was in New York. Now it's been in L.A. for a long time, and it is what it is. Alex Ovechkin, who doesn't seem to like to miss parties, curiously was not there. That surprised me. But he did win and certainly was deserving of the best record-breaking performance for going past Wayne Gretzky this past season.
And the ESPY goes to Alexander Ovechkin.
Oh, Alex couldn't be here tonight, so I guess I won. Just kidding. But he sends this message. Take a look.
Hey, everyone. I'm sorry I can't be there, but I'm back home and getting ready for next season. I just want to say a huge thanks to all of the fans. Your support means everything to me and my family, to my coaches, teammates, and the entire Capitals organization. Thank you for all your support. We accomplished something special this season, and we did it together. A special thank you to Wayne Gretzky and his family for always being there for me, and to my wife, kids, and the whole family. Thank you for everything. See you soon, guys. Take care.
Very classy. Okay, short. That was Alex Ovechkin after winning best record-breaking performance. Best athlete, and this did not go well at all. Shane Gillis-Alexander, he was close to the front row. Shane Gillis was making a few jokes about him early on. He was wearing this, and boy, this is an odd look for the middle of July in any city, much less Los Angeles. He's wearing a full three-piece suit, looks like a banker with a vest, the whole deal. And on top of that, he's got a full-length overcoat. It's July. You're indoors, and you're wearing an overcoat, which is the same fabric as the suit. And, of course, he doesn't put the overcoat on. He's got it draped over his shoulders. It's really an odd look. But, okay, he won Best Athlete. The Thunder won the championship. It was deserved. But if he thought he was going to win, he was apparently very ill-prepared. I would imagine that they give them a chance to at least – look at the prompter, so if they win, they can go up there and read it. Well, he was totally flustered with the prompter, as you'll hear here, and you'll hear some silence, which is an edit when he cursed. For accepting an award, there's got to be a better way to do it. But this was SGA last night, Best Athlete Award at the ESPYs.
Wow. Thank you for all the claps. Thank you so much. First off, I'd like to thank the ESPYs for an amazing award show, an opportunity to win an award like this, obviously. Then I want to say congrats to all the nominees on amazing seasons. Then I want to say, let me run it back. Then I want to say thank you to all the previous nominees and award winners. To be a part of a list like this is special and a blessing and an honor. A dream come true, and for dreams to come true, it takes a village, and my village has nothing been short. Wow, I am messing up here. Okay. 2, achieve your dreams. It takes a village, and my village has been nothing short of special since the start of my journey, starting with my wife, my mom, my dad, my brother, Simon, Ike, Nate, Nam, Vince, Sunday, Maurice, Devo, Mark, The list goes on. And those names probably don't mean much to a lot of people in the world, but to me, they mean everything. And I love those guys. Love them to death. Then I want to thank the Thunder organization for allowing me to be me, be a basketball player and make my dreams come true. Then I want to thank my teammates, best basketball team in the world, and they earned that, they deserve that. I love you guys too. Not as much as the other guys, but I love you guys too. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
That's Shane Gillis Alexander with some prompter problems. Just ad lib, buddy. Just say, hey, thank you very much. We won the championship. I'm happy to take it. Best of luck to all the other winners, and we'll see you next year as we try to repeat. Not that hard. But he wound up cursing. He wound up having to start over again. Ay. One who did not have problems with the prompter and looked really, really good. Oscar Robertson had put on some weight after he stopped playing. He's got himself looking in really fine shape. Now, I'm trying to figure out how old he is. He must be in his 80s right now, or close to 80. And if you look at the backcourt of the 1960 Olympic team, I mean, in terms of career accomplishments and what they have done as men, one of them's gone, sadly, in Jerry West. But coming out of the 1960 Olympics, that was the backcourt. Jerry West from West Virginia, the Zeke from Cabin Creek, and Oscar Robertson, who in today's world might have stayed home and gone to Indiana and won a championship there. But in those days, a black man was not going to go play basketball at Indiana, so he went to Cincinnati, won a championship for them, came to the NBA, struggled with the Cincinnati Royals he didn't, but the team did, and then finally, at the end of his career, got himself traded to the Milwaukee Bucks, and with a young Lou Alcindor, I think he was still Alcindor, they won the championship, swept the Bullets in 1971, and he got his title. At one point, he held the record for most triple-doubles. He averaged a triple-double for a season. Russell Westbrook took the torch on that later on and actually broke his career record while he's playing here. That 1 year with the Wizards, he did break the record. But Oscar looked great, and he got the Arthur Ashe Courage Award and talked about his trailblazing moves in the NBA.
The recipient of the Arthur Ashe Award for Courage, the Big O, Oscar Robertson.
Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. I'm truly honored to be this year's recipient of the Arthur Ashe Award for Courage. Much of who I am today is shaped by growing up in Indiana. There you were taught about fairness, perseverance, humility, and respect. While I reached the highest levels on the court, ultimately, the lasting achievement that captures my legacy was what I accomplished as president of the NBA Players Association. The NBA was the first sport to have an organized Players Association, and I became the first African-American president of any national sports or entertainment labor union. Thank you. But I knew there was work to do. There was a desperate need for players to have more career security, improved working conditions, and other accommodations. In life, it is important to be persistent, or as I have been called, stubborn. Stubborn about what you believe in. It is important to do the right thing and help others, even if it comes at great personal sacrifice. As the mission began, I believed it was important to get all of my teammates involved in the game, just as it is on the court. Despite the threats from team owners, general managers, some NBA executives, my teammates in the Players Association and I had the courage to fight for what is right. I testified before Congress, spoke out against the league, and sacrificed an immediate future with professional team and in broadcasting after retirement. You know, I'm asked on occasions, would I have followed the same path if I had the chance to do it again? My answer is always yes, because I saw our 6-year legal battle as a question of fundamental economic rights in order to be seen and treated as partners with the NBA owners. But only through mutual respect can you transform an institution for the betterment of all involved. The values I mentioned, described in my childhood, fueled my path. As I challenged norms that didn't benefit people and sacrificed personal gain, I realized that helping others and looking out for more than just yourself improves whatever community of which you are a part. I accept the Arthur Ashe Award for courage, humbled by the many past recipients and their choices to demand fairness and persevere through adversity. Thank you for this honor.
Oscar Robertson, I hope that the current players understand what he did and what he described there and what it has meant to them over the long term. Yeah, they'd eventually have gotten to where they are today, but it takes somebody with courage to do that. He had the chops. He was a great player. They weren't going to run him out of the league. But he was the one who stood up and said, we need representation here. There was an incident where they were ready to boycott an All Star Game, which would have been a pretty big deal. And as he said, he was the first of the labor union leaders as a player. You know, you think of Marvin Miller, who became executive director of the Players Association in baseball in the 1960s, coming from representing steelworkers, and he said this was the most abused labor group he had ever seen. You couldn't go to another job. The reserve clause kept you from doing that. The minimum salary of $6,000, it had stayed that way for like 20 years. And he was able to eventually get things going. And then, of course, with the Curt Flood case, which they lost in the Supreme Court, but paved the way for free agency, things began to change. But in Oscar's day, he played until 1974. I don't believe they had free agency yet then, and he was able to do a lot of things for the players that sit in place today and give them the kind of protection that they need, and showed the way for the other labor unions as well, including football. And you know, when you see how much money these guys make and how much freedom they have now to move from team to team, going back 15 years ago with LeBron and the decision, it doesn't happen without somebody taking the first step. And I've probably told this story before. They didn't overlap. Oscar left the league in 74, and Kevin Greavy came in 1975 with the Bullets. And he told me he lived in an apartment complex in Greenbelt, which was near the Capitol Center. They didn't have their own practice court, or maybe they worked out at Bowie State then too. Whatever it was, Prince George's County, or that area was where he was going to live. And he said he lived in the same apartment complex with police officers. And he remembered being jealous of the police officers because they had a pension coming to them. It was later on that the NBA players got a pension. But you know, that kind of thing doesn't happen if there isn't somebody like Oscar Robertson to do that. So you think of the impact of that backcourt, back to my original point, 1960, Jerry West, Oscar Robertson. Jerry West comes into the league with the Lakers. Oscar comes in with Cincinnati. Jerry West, while he doesn't win a championship, they're in the championship just about every year, beaten by the Celtics. Royals are nowhere. Nobody's talking about the Cincinnati Royals. And Jerry West goes on to become the logo, finally wins his championship late in his career, just, I think, 2 years earlier than when Oscar finally won his. No, I think it was one. That's right. Oscar won his in 71. Jerry won his in 72. Jerry didn't change teams. Oscar did. And then Jerry West goes on to become one of the great general managers ever. Oscar goes into broadcasting and a variety of other things that he's involved in, and they both remain beacons of respect, greatness, great people, great human beings. And I'm sorry that a lot of people who watched this last night have no idea who Oscar Robertson is and remains, and someone who should be looked up to by every athlete in every sport, because, as he said, he was the first as a player rep for a union and helped to get better working conditions for all of them. Because as Tex Schramm once said during the strike of 1982, hey, we're the ranchers, they're the cattle. And that mindset existed and has existed for many years in sports. Now, the tables have changed in terms of generational wealth that the players can make, but the owners have always had the upper hand. Coming up, Zach Ertz with more on how he feels going into the season for the Commanders. We heard what he said about making sure that Terry McLaurin gets signed. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. As you may know, even though I've made my living most of my life with the spoken word, I'm a huge fan of the written word. Love reading books, columns, articles. People put a lot of work into those things and crafting stories and opinion pieces. It's brilliant stuff. And then in the spoken word, sometimes it's taken to another level, like what Vin Scully did a number of times during his career, including April 8th, 1974, as he penned with his voice one of the great columns about the accomplishment of Henry Aaron, which was celebrated the other night at the All Star Game in Atlanta. And I'm going to put a couple of things together. One, what Tony and Mike said last night on PTI about that moment. If you didn't see it live, watching the All Star Game on Tuesday, it's up on YouTube. Really, really well done. How they did a tribute to Hank Aaron and using the calls of the home run by Vin Scully, who, by the way, you know, a lot of people think that Vin Scully, because he did national TV games for so long, that Scully did the TV of Hank Aaron's home run. That's Curt Gowdy. I don't know if I've heard that since I watched it live. I may have, but the two things that you hear for the home run, the call, it's the Milo Hamilton call. Henry Aaron is number one all-time or whatever it is, and, you know, you've got the kids following around the bases. It was an outstanding call, no question about it, and he was the Braves' hometown announcer. But it just so happened, and sometimes the fates line up this way, because they were playing the Dodgers, and at that point in his career, Vin Scully was still traveling to games east of the Mississippi and doing just radio. In 1974, there may have been a package of TV games for the Dodgers, but not every game was on TV. And this game was on national TV, on NBC, so there was really no reason for the Dodgers to televise this locally. So this was the radio call that Scully had. And it probably should get more credit than it actually does. Because if you listen to it, you could take those words, put them on a piece of paper, do a little bit of editing, and submit it as a column for a writing award. Pulitzer Prize, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it is that good. And we're going to play that coming up in about 20 minutes. Meantime, life goes on for the Commanders. We are still waiting to find out what happens with Terry McLaurin. They did make a move last night. Von Miller's coming in on a one-year deal, adding to the pass rush. He's 36 years old. Hasn't been a super player in some time, but did win 2 Super Bowls, one as the MVP with the Denver Broncos, and the other with the Los Angeles Rams when he came in a midseason trade from Denver. Played the last 3 years in Buffalo, so hurt. Didn't have a sack in 2023, had like 4 or 5 last year. So we'll see what he adds, but on a one-year deal, why not? Why not see what you can do? And he's added to the oldest team in the league. As for what's happening with Terry McLaurin and kind of an uncharacteristic, I don't want to say outburst because he was very calm in what he said, but the half-hour news conference that he had the other day where he said he's not going to lie. He's very frustrated in the progress. They haven't talked in a month, he says, and he would like to be with the team, but you know he's not going to sign a below-market deal, and he's understood what he's done for this team. And he needs to be paid. That's really what he's after. It's not that he needs the money. It's the respect that he thinks he deserves, and I understand that. This was the first comment that we heard so far from one of his teammates, Zach Ertz, on the K. Adams podcast, Up and Adams, not surprisingly on teammate Terry McLaurin.
Terry is a guy, I'm not going to over there. I don't know the business of what's going on. I'm not privy to the conversations. But what is it, July 16th? The first game is September 7th. There's a lot of time between now and then to get something done. But at the end of the day, I mean, everyone knows Terry's working his butt off, whether he's in the building or not in the building. And so for me as a player that's gone through contract situations, public contract situations, I appreciated that my teammates weren't out there giving their opinions and everything like that. So I'm not going to come out here and say one thing or the other. But what I do know is Terry is going to do everything he can to be at his best when his best is needed. And fortunately, his best is not needed tomorrow or early next week. It's needed towards the end of training camp, week 1. So for me, I'm rooting for Terry. I hope he gets paid as much as he wants to get paid. But in terms of the business side of it, I'm going to stay far away from that.
Yeah, and I think with his experience in the NFL, and I don't know if whether Adam Peters would discuss it with him, even if he asked him about it, but I think his understanding is it's going to get done. And maybe that message was conveyed through somebody else, but he did sound somewhat confident about that. But, you'd like to see it get done, and I think that this is one of those contract situations where I don't think there's much sentiment with management. The Von Miller thing, as I mentioned in the last hour, it could be something that indicates, okay, they're not going to trade him. Not that Micah Parsons was going to be a possibility. Like Jerry Jones has already shot down that rumor that they're not going to trade for an old receiver with a top of the market pass rusher. But whether they trade him or not, it could be possible that they say to him, "Hey, you got a contract. Come in, show up. We may negotiate during the year, we may not, but we paid you to come in and show up this year, and at the end of the year, we could franchise you. We could give you the kind of contract that you're looking for. We could trade you. There's a lot of things that they could do. So yeah, I didn't think anyway. I didn't think it would get to this, but this is where we are. As for Zach Ertz coming off a great year. I did not have high expectations for him. Remember, when he came here last year, he had been out of football for a while. He had been cut in the middle of the season by Arizona. He had played for Cliff Kingsbury. Kingsbury got fired. He got cut. He got picked up by Detroit at the end of the season, but that was only like an emergency situation if they got to the Super Bowl, and that was it. So I thought, well, okay, older guy, gave him a 1-year deal. Let's see. But now he's back, and what he told Kay Adams yesterday, this is the only team he would have come back to.
I didn't want to play anywhere else. The culture, the people, the quarterback, you don't leave this situation just to leave it. In my opinion, there's few places as exciting to play in right now than DC. And so for me, it was really a no-brainer to come back.
It's so true. I mean, I love that you're back, and I can't wait to see what you guys do this year. You personally are on the cusp of hitting a pretty huge milestone this season. Are you aware of that?
No, I don't know what milestone you could be talking about.
Well, maybe there's a few, but the 41 catches from entering top 5 receptions all time among tight ends. You're looking at them. What does this feel like to see yourself among the best to do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty special. Obviously, these are guys that I've tried to emulate, try to steal bits and pieces of their games throughout my career. Obviously, I didn't get to watch Shannon Sharp film. It wasn't as prevalent now as watching some of these other guys. Obviously, Trav and I came in the same draft class, so we've been up there together. But it's honestly just, I think, a testament to the people that have helped me along the way. You don't do anything like this by yourself. Being able to play this long in the league, being able to be around some amazing coaches, quarterbacks, teams, and all that is fun. The stats are fun and everything, but at this point in my career, all I really care about is winning as many football games as possible. And so I've trained extremely hard this offseason to be at my best for the team when they need me throughout the season. So, yeah, the stats are cool, but winning is a lot cooler.
Have you changed anything in your training? You always work extra hard every offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's as you get more, I don't want to say older, but as you get more years in the league,
I hear you.
You kind of have to adjust certain things here and there. I'm not as focused on the conditioning aspect going into camp. It's more trying to get as explosive as I possibly can and use training camp to kind of build the football shape. Because regardless of how hard you try to get in football shape, nothing really emulates practice and football and playing football. So for me, the training has changed probably a little bit, but I'm still with the same strength coach as when I was in college. He's the best strength coach I've ever been around. So for me, it's just part of the process. I love the process, and I tell people all the time, when I stop loving the process is when I'll be done.
All right, and I would think he's working on a career in broadcasting when he's finished, but he's going to certainly play this year. He's part of, and I guess this number goes up a little bit. There was 27.5 before the signing of 36-year-old Von Miller yesterday. This was after he spoke to Kay Adams, but this is Ertz on being a part of what is the oldest team in the NFL.
Twofold. One, it's like all these other sports, the guys that are 34, 35, like Durant, I'm not in Bobby and I, maybe not in Kevin Durant's category, but he's still getting traded for first-round picks at 36, 37.
There we go.
Football really is the only sport that is viewed, like age is viewed in such a negative light. And I think there's so many variables in terms of just saying someone's age. Like your processing speed is faster. You're able to recognize the defense is better. And so I think there's that side of being an older player that people may not account for. But also with our team, AP, DQ, Cliff, they've been so deliberate in the type of people that they've brought in, just guys that loved going to work every day, loved practicing every day. And truly the culture that they've built in terms of just wanting guys to be able to maximize their individual potential so the potential of the team continues to get higher is really second to none in terms of the buildings I've been in. Everyone on the team, I can pretty much say from top to bottom, loves to practice, loves to work. And so for guys like me and Bobby, it's just a natural, it's easy to come to work every day. There's no like, oh man, I got to go to work every day and you're 13, 14. It's really just, we love being around the guys. We love the type of people that are there. And so it's really just enjoyable to go to work every day.
And I think people who might, you're saying it's not looked at as a bad thing. Like you and Bobby had tremendous seasons last year. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just the young cats and it wasn't just the quarterback. It is that true team thing that you open this interview with, as you always do, because it's kind of who you are. But you were so important to that. Bobby was so important to that. You were so big on third downs. You were a security blanket for Jaden. And I think so it's just an interesting thing. I will ask you this, like training camp day one, how many different eras of music are we going through? Like top to bottom?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, as an older guy, you kind of have control of the aux, but you're always open to requests, I would say. But at the same time, it's just fun to be a part of the guys. The guys are such good energy. Jaden, Mikey, Ben Sinnott, these guys are going to be great players for a long time. And so for me, it's just fun to be a part of the organization.
The Ulta Cocker with the boom box there. Put in that cassette tape over there. Put in another music thing. This couple other things from Zach Ertz in the interview yesterday with Kay Adams. Dan Quinn. Now he came here for Cliff Kingsbury. That's clear. Kingsbury, as they say, probably stood on the table and said, "I think he's got something left." Doggone, he does have something left. But in coming here and playing for Kingsbury, he's also been a part of the Dan Quinn team, and this is a guy who won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. He has played for good coaches, and here's what he says about Quinn.
Coach Quinn is probably the best coach I've been around in front of the team and being himself and bringing energy and holding guys accountable at the same time. I think he is truly a difference maker in this league. And I don't know if you can say that about every single coach, that they're a difference maker with their team. But I think Coach Quinn truly elevates all of our performances, and not only on Sundays, but truly every day. And so for me, being around him in particular has really opened my eyes to how good he is. I was never with him. I never played with him before I got out here. But immediately you knew that he was a difference maker in this league.
And look, nobody was really excited when he was hired, certainly not me. But it looks like they got the right guy for the right situation. Last thing from Ertz, this is on the talent level, his talent level, the team talent level, and what they look to in 2025.
In terms of like number one receivers, there's two guys, AJ Green, which I saw at the end of his career, Terry McLaurin, are the two guys that literally, if they had 150 yards or 20 yards, you couldn't tell the difference in their demeanor. And I think that speaks volumes about the type of people they are, the type of how they work. Dudes just want to be great teammates and give everything they can for their guys. Those two I hold in especially high regard.
It's interesting because sometimes while these things are going on, it creates an opportunity and it all kind of works out at the end. Terry will come back, hopefully, right? We'll figure that out. But then in the meantime, other people have an opportunity to shine or take more leadership role or whatever. Like that's how it works a little bit and then by the end, everyone's got the experience and the depth. And like, there's always a little bit of an opportunity with an injury or a gap or whatever. Is there someone that you've noticed in the off season? Because I'm not buying that like it's got to be different without Terry in the off season stuff. It just has to be. So is there anybody that you're noticing, whether it's a young person, old person, that's sort of sticking out right now?
Oh man, I think we have a really talented receiver room in general. But a guy that has always consistently been underrated in this league is Noah Brown. I don't know if it's because of how he came into the league but the dude is super, super talented, probably one of the better route running receivers I've been around in my career. He had a phenomenal offseason. And then Jalen Lane, the young rookie receiver we drafted, I think from a football IQ standpoint to how he handles himself, very, very mature. And so I think those two guys to me really stood out this offseason. And the good thing about that room is it is very competitive. And Terry leads the way. Obviously, he's led the way in that room for a long time for this organization. But there's a lot of good people in that room. Debo, obviously, adding him, definitely a different type of player, different type of dynamic, but a guy you need to find ways to get the ball in his hands. So, I'm excited about the room in general. Luke McCaffrey, another guy that I think is going to take the next step. So for me, it's just fun to see guys compete, obviously. And that's what the best part about going into training camp is that all expectations, all off-season talk is irrelevant from the moment we start camp. How last season ended is irrelevant. And so for me, it's all about competing and earning your way. I'm not walking into training camp this year expecting anything. I expect to go out there and earn the trust of my coaches and my teammates again. It's not like, Zach is penciled in to do X, Y, and Z. We need to find him a way to get this many balls or this many targets. It's about me going out there and showing them like, yeah, maybe you need to give me a little more. Maybe I don't earn as much. And so for me, that's the best part about training camp starting is all the talk of the offseason or how last season ended will finally be done.
That's Zach Ertz yesterday on the Up and Adams podcast. And the Terry McLaurin thing continues to hang over the organization. But it's just like sunshine coming out after a thunderstorm, that if this gets done in the next couple of days, within a week, it's forgotten and everybody moves on. But also, like he says, Terry could come in late in training camp. He doesn't think that's going to be that big of a deal. And they got other receivers who are going to get opportunities to play. I still think it's important to have him there for the first day of camp, mainly for Jaden Daniels and what he'll have to deal with and people asking him questions. And he'll say, well, I leave that up to the business people and so forth. But it's a bad feel. It's a bad look for an organization that has turned things around and gotten things pointed in the right direction to have this particular player, this guy above all others, Terry McLaurin, to be in what is becoming a bitter contract dispute, which I never, ever expected. All right, coming up yesterday on PTI, Tony and Mike very eloquent about the tribute to Hank Aaron at the All Star Game the other night, and they referenced the Vin Scully remarks after Aaron broke the record. I got the album cut version of that as well. So we'll put those two things together and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
I don't know if you've fully got your head around this, but we've had something unusual unfold this week because for years, coming out of All-Star games, we've gone, God, this sucks. We got to get rid of it. They eventually did get rid of the Pro Bowl in football. The Hockey All-Star Game took a different turn this year with the four-nation shootout. That worked out really well, but that wasn't an All-Star Game. And if they go back to the All-Star format after the Olympics, we'll see. We'll see how that survives. Baseball has been going downhill with the All-Star Game, and I thought last year was terrible with those softball uniforms that they wore and just the whole feel of it. This year, people are coming out of it saying, that was pretty good. They went back to the traditional baseball uniforms. That was a smart thing. The swing off at the end of the game to decide the tie was ultimately very positive. And then for certainly the older people, and hopefully the younger people get a sense of this. They did an outstanding tribute to Hank Aaron during the game. And if you haven't seen it, you can watch it on YouTube. They used the calls of Milo Hamilton, who was the radio announcer for the Braves, announcing the home run when it happened, and the Vin Scully call, not the full, which I'm going to play here, not the call, but the aftermath of the home run. But it was extremely well done, and whoever put that together deserves a lot of credit. Tony and Mike discussing it last night on PTI, and here's a guy in his 70s, here's a guy in his 60s, giving it 2 big thumbs up.
A visual display was projected onto the diamond to recreate the moment, followed by a lone fireworks shot out toward left field to symbolize the trajectory of the home run itself. On hand was Aaron's widow, Billy Aaron. Tony, what do you feel while watching this moment?
Okay, so there were 3 lovely tributes last night. One was when Dave Roberts, I think in the middle of the third, went out there and brought Freddie Freeman off so that the fans in Atlanta who loved Freddie Freeman for all those years when he was with the Braves could give him a great ovation. Dave Roberts did it again when he went to get his own horse, when he went to get Clayton Kershaw, who had retired 2 batters, 1 by a strikeout, and he moved him off for a nice warm ovation in what likely will be the last All-Star game that Clayton Kershaw ever plays in. And there was a tribute to Hank Aaron, which was produced perfectly. It was not schmaltzy, it was not syrupy, it was right down the middle, and it was lovely. So, Hank Aaron hitting number 715 in Atlanta is the greatest single moment in Georgia sports history by an enormous margin. This was an important home run for baseball, an important home run for Aaron, and an important home run, Mike, as you and I will agree, for the United States of America. This is not just any rum-dum record that he's getting. He's breaking the record of Babe Ruth, who to that point, and maybe even still now, is the most important athlete the United States has ever produced. And he's going after the singular number, 714, that everybody understands, and he is a black man in Atlanta, and he's breaking the record there after an exemplary life that he led. And Mike, I cannot and you cannot overstate this. We cannot overstate it.
No. And Vin Scully didn't overstate it when he talked about what a wonderful moment this was for America. Vin Scully went right to this. In 1974, and if it had been anybody lesser than Vin Scully, he might have been taken to task. And it was fascinating to me, Tony, that the 3 people who called it in live time, and then you could go back and hear some of this with the tribute, Milo Hamilton, who called the Braves for forever, among other teams, Vin Scully and Kurt Gowdy. These are legendary names in broadcasting. And if you go back to a time when I was 15 years old, to be able to relive that by watching it, and I just watched it again on my phone. I watched some of it last night. It is, Tony, it's very emotional. You hope that now a country, a culture, which doesn't appreciate history, which doesn't pay attention, which if they can only consume clips, our children and grandchildren, maybe they will consume that clip from last night. And they'll look at it, and they'll go to Google or wherever it is, whatever AI they go to, and learn more about Henry Aaron and Henry Aaron's home run off of Al Downing and what it meant and what the struggle was like for Henry Aaron, who received death threats as he approached Babe Ruth. Maybe that's the significance of it, is that it was wonderfully done, Tony, but maybe now a country younger than us that doesn't give a damn about anything that didn't happen on TikTok this morning will be curious enough to learn more.
It's burned into my memory. I saw it and I remember it. I can visualize him rounding the bases. I can visualize those 2 kids when he's around third coming in. I can visualize him smiling and his teammates smiling. And I will say this now, and I believe this in all my heart. That's an important moment for America.
Yeah, and you also have the perfect storm of broadcasting in this. You have the Milo Hamilton call, which you were going to have anyway. He was the Braves announcer. But the fact that the Dodgers were playing in this game, the national announcer was not Vin Scully. That was Kurt Gowdy. And I don't even know where there is a recording of this, to be honest with you. I did watch it that night. It was a special game. As a matter of fact, Aaron had opened the season on the road against the Cincinnati Reds, and he had hit 714, I believe, on Saturday. And for the Sunday game, they announced, Henry Aaron's going to sit out so he can hit 715 at home. And Bowie Kuhn, the commissioner, they could do this in those days, the commissioner stepped in and said, no, you're going to play him. Aaron didn't hit a home run on Sunday in Cincinnati, and they go home for this game on Monday night against the Dodgers. Well, NBC, jumping on this, knowing that there's going to be history or possibility of history made, does the national TV broadcast of it. There are death threats for Hank Aaron. One of the stories is that when they went out for the lineups, one of the umpires was packing a gun. He was actually a Secret Service agent because Hank Aaron had gotten letters that said, I'm going to be in the stands and I'm going to shoot you. It was a black man in the South breaking the record in sports, the individual record. There was no number that could come close to 714. And there was no individual who had played sports who was better known than Babe Ruth. There were stories like in World War II of the Japanese saying F Babe Ruth in a way to get their enthusiasm going to beat the United States. Those were things that were happening at the time, and Hank Aaron facing that kind of scrutiny and that kind of hatred all added up to this. And so now you have this as a backdrop. You have the importance of what this record means, and then you have the perfect man to make the call. And there's nobody who's been close to Vin Scully as a baseball analyst. I don't want to say close, but I think the acknowledgement is he's the best to ever do it. You want to talk about second place, you can, but it's like, John Thompson used to talk about, a basketball player. He's number one all time, and then you skip 5 places for number 2. That's how he felt about Elgin Baylor, who he had known growing up in Washington. But Scully meets the moment, and he's only there because it's the Dodgers playing. If the Dodgers weren't playing the Braves in this game, we don't have Scully, and we don't have this treasured description, as Mike alluded to in talking to Tony last night. So I'm going to give you here. This is after the home run has been hit. And Scully had talked about this, that even though he was doing radio, he knew he needed it to breathe. So he called the home run for Hank Aaron, and he got up to make himself a cup of coffee. So he would wait the appropriate amount of time. And after letting it breathe for that period of time, I think it was over a minute, Scully said this, and these were words off the top of his head. They had to be. He may have thought about what he was going to say going into the game, but to deliver them with this kind of cadence and this kind of emotion, it's poetry. This is Vin Scully on the night that Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's record.
What a marvelous moment for baseball. What a marvelous moment for Atlanta and the state of Georgia. What a marvelous moment for the country and the world. A black man is getting a standing ovation in the Deep South for breaking a record of an all-time baseball idol. And it is a great moment for all of us, and particularly for Henry Aaron, who was met at home plate not only by every member of the Braves, but by his father and mother. He threw his arms around his father, and as he left the home plate area, his mother came running across the grass, threw her arms around his neck, kissed him for all she was worth. As Aaron circled the bases, the Dodgers on the infield shook his hand, and that was a memorable moment. Aaron is being mobbed by photographers. He is holding his right hand high in the air, and for the first time in a long time, that poker face of Aaron shows the tremendous strain and relief of what it must have been like to live with for the past several months. It is over. At 10 minutes after 9 in Atlanta, Georgia, Henry Aaron has eclipsed the mark set by Babe Ruth. You could not, I guess, get 2 more opposite men. The Babe Big and garrulous and oh so sociable. And oh so immense in all of his appetites. And then the quiet lad out of Mobile, Alabama. Slender and stayed slender throughout his career. Ruth, as he put on the poundage and the paunch, the Yankees put their ball players in pinstripe uniforms because it made Ruth look slimmer. But they didn't need pinstripe uniforms for Henry Aaron in the twilight of his career. He looked almost the same as he did when he first came up 20 years ago. And so it was a memorable moment before the game, and now what a sweet moment it is here in the middle of the game. So Henry and the Babe, the two greatest home run hitters that have ever lived. And it's a marvelous, wonderful, enjoyable moment here in Atlanta.
You cannot do it any better than that. That's as good as you can get it for the person who was right for the moment. Remember, Vin Scully started doing Dodger games 51, maybe 52. Jackie Robinson was the star of the team. He was friends with Jackie Robinson. He saw the racism that Jackie Robinson faced when they went from city to city. And if you've seen the movie 42, you got a pretty good idea about that. And he takes that experience and he takes all those years of doing Dodger games, more than 20 years of being their announcer, into this moment, understanding what Henry Aaron is going through with the perspective of Babe Ruth, who I believe he saw play. Because Babe Ruth's last year was 1935 with the Boston Braves. So 34 with the Yankees. You got to figure that Scully was a kid in those days. He might have made it out to Yankee Stadium to see him play. He grew up in the Bronx, went to Fordham. Sometimes you just get that perfect storm, and that's what it was. If it's any other team, you don't have that. You don't have the moment being met by the master in Vin Scully. And think about where we were in 1974, where there were no black managers in baseball yet. Frank Robinson would become the player manager of the Cleveland Indians a year later. So there was still that color line for managers that was going on. This happened in Atlanta almost exactly 6 years after Martin Luther King was assassinated. There was still a lot of racial tension, particularly in that area. It's just a remarkable thing to look back on. And when you move forward 51 years, so much gets forgotten, and there's such little understanding from people who weren't around at that time. And so when they capture it as well as they did during the All Star Game, and you get the pat on the back from, Ulta Cockers like Tony and Mike and myself and people who are old enough to remember watching that you really accomplished something there. And I think that if you have any interest in it, you should do some research on it. There are great articles written about that and what Hank Aaron faced and the relief that he had. I mean, it wasn't just the relief of finally breaking the record, which he had been chasing for years and people talked about nonstop. It was the fact that he was alive, that he wasn't shot, because the letters that he got, thought that might be a possibility. And to be at home plate like he was with all the people around him. You see a very young Craig Sager, by the way. If you look that up on YouTube, he's wearing like a trench coat and he's got a tape recorder. Those are things that when you look back on it and say, how did that happen at that moment? Well, just the fates, everything lined up perfectly. And the perfect narrator for the moment was Vin Scully on April 8th of 1974. So anyway, we are on Terry McLaurin watch, and I don't know if this will get done before they open on Tuesday, but I would think that they are seriously talking now. If they're not, this could be an indication of how the new regime intends to do business. With all the goodwill, with all the good players that they signed in free agency, like Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz and guys like that, when it comes to re-signing their own, they're maybe telling you, now we're going to play hardball, even with Terry McLaurin. I never thought it would come to this, but here we are. And we may have some development for tomorrow. We'll see. Got to have some content for tomorrow. It'd be nice if that shows up. But at the moment, as we close out the show on Thursday, there is Terry McLaurin signed for this year, but not signed beyond it, which I don't think is a good thing. Bram is off this week. ESPN Radio is next. I'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m.